Good evening and welcome to the Hendrick Hudson Board of Education meeting for March 12th, 2014. May we please rise and pledge allegiance to the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We've been in executive session, and now we are returning to public session. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda? Second? Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Can I have approval of the consent agenda, please? Second? All in favor? Thank you. Okay. Right. Acceptance of donations. Can I have a motion to approve donations, which I will go over? The first one is the Hendrick Hudson CEF has made a donation of $2,000 to our high school to purchase a MIDI controller, microphones, and other recording equipment for a new recording studio. The second one is that the Hendrick Hudson Athletic Department has received a donation from the Hendrick Hudson Ice Hockey Club and money from Odell's, which we're thankful for. The Furnace Woods Elementary School PTA has donated money to supplement the cost of students who are attending Ashokan, and we again thank them for that.
Yes, me too. My son got back safe and sound.
Yay. I believe that
I cried a
Frank
little
J.
bit.
was going today, right? So that's good. Okay. All right, audience comments?
We just need a motion to accept.
We need a motion.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can I please have a motion to accept the donations?
So moved.
Thank you. Okay.
That would be all of us, Roseanne.
All of us.
I think we-
Everybody, thank you all for helping. Audience comments?
We're happy that they donated.
Oh, good. Moving right along here.
Bonnie.
Okay. I guess,
Number 6, student recognition. So we have one of our
Yay.
future budding scientists, Dylan Gambardella, with us, and his teacher and mentor in all things science research, Dr. Rogers. So we would like to invite them to the podium. Dr. Rogers addressed the board in early January.
That was it. It was when we had Audrey Hecht, who actually qualified as a semi-finalist for Intel. And you have to realize it's very hard to be a semi-finalist for Intel. There are over 4,000 applicants worldwide, actually, not just the US, but also the American schools that are overseas are applying. And they are picking 300 students. So she was recognized in January. And we have also today Dylan Gambardella, who has done a fantastic job over the summer and worked with Dr. Lu Chen at the New York University campus in Tuxedo, a little bit upset on environmental science. And Dylan got first place at the Westchester Rockland JSHS in February for his presentation that we're going to see just now. It's a fantastic presentation. And we just went to SUNY at Albany for the New York State Finals, where he placed 4th. And in the final, that was all the student states in his category. Now I want you to realize that this is a project that is extremely thought-challenging. And I think we were discussing this earlier, and some of the judges didn't even think that it was possible, and it was one of the things we were talking about earlier, because it's such a change of philosophy to believe that diabetes type 2 could be actually coming not only from a bad, healthy living style, too much McDonald's or something like that, but also because you happen to be exposed to a certain kind of pollution. And for medical doctors who have had this idea that only certain lifestyles would create diabetes type 2. I'm not saying it doesn't, it certainly does, but there is another factor that we really don't think about, which is the environmental pollution. So this idea was extremely challenging, and very often people really don't like to be challenged in their beliefs. So I think that we are competing again on Saturday at the Westchester Science and Engineering Fair, which is the biggest, actually the biggest competition in the region, with over 350 projects each year. And this competition will select a number of students to go to Intel ICEF, which is an international competition with students from all over the world, not just American schools, which is taking place in Los Angeles in May, I believe. And they will also select 3 students to go to iSweep, which is an environmental science competition at the national and international level that is taking place in Houston, Texas. So I am begging Dylan to win so that I can visit Houston, Texas and Los Angeles. That would be really, really great. And I think he really has a good shot at it, because this is an out-of-the-box project. This is a project that is challenging ideas. And, well, we see that sometimes people don't want to be challenged, but he had a flawless presentation, absolutely flawless presentation at the New York State Finals. He answered the questions without hesitation. He had all his facts to be able to answer the questions. And I have to say that this category of biomedical sciences that they put him in was quite a challenging category, with students that are developing cures for ovarian cancer, with students that are looking at ways to treat Alzheimer's disease. We had projects that literally rocked me, and I was so amazed by the quality and the level of the project that were competing in that competition. And so it was very enlightening to see the level of the students in that competition, the level of preparation, to get some ideas from our colleagues regarding how to make better PowerPoints, how to make better posters, and to exchange, as far as an educator, to be able to exchange best practices with other science research teachers from the entire New York State region. We were really talking a lot with each other about the best way to get our students moving to the top. So I'm going to hand in the microphone to Dylan, and well, here you go.
Hello, everyone. Thank you again for having me tonight. It's an honor to speak in front of you all. Also, I'd just like to thank Dr. Rogers for all the hard work she has put in. Without her over the past 3 years, none of this could have been possible. So once again, just give another round of applause for everything she does. Okay, so. And my parents, yes, of course. Thank you for catching me on that one. They're pretty great too.
And the mentors.
And yes, and I'll get to, I have a whole slide at the end that I'll try to cover everybody that I missed. Okay, so once again, my name is Dylan Gambardella. I'm part of the Hendrik Hudson Science Research Team, and today I'll be presenting you my research entitled Evaluating the Potential and Mechanisms of Diabetes Mellitus Induction in Response to Acute Ambient Particulate Pollution Exposure. So in the United States, from 1995 to 2010, the number of diabetes cases more than doubled to about 24 million, making this one of the most prevalent health concerns in our nation today. So there are 2 main types of diabetes, diabetes type 1 and diabetes type 2. For purposes of my study, I focused on the second type, as it is shown to be more influenced by environmental factors, such as air pollution. There are many characteristics of diabetes type 2, but the first and most important is insulin resistance. Now, insulin resistance occurs when the bodily cells and tissues cannot correctly identify or utilize insulin that is produced by the pancreas. So this message gets back to the pancreas, and the pancreas tries to overcome this by producing more and more insulin. However, this can lead to a partial or complete shutdown of the pancreas, resulting in the need for exogenous insulin injections, sometimes daily or weekly. So now what is fine particulate matter? Well, fine particulate matter, or PM2.5, categorizes all air pollutants up to 2.5 micrometers in size, making it one of the smallest air pollutions in our world today. And it's made up of various toxic organic compounds, including dust, dirt, soot, smoke, and heavy metals. And is formed through the burning of plants, the processing of metals, and also through automobile exhaust. To give you an idea of the minute size, you can see we have a human hair here, and up in the top right is the PM2.5 particle, about 1/1000th the width. So that minute size is what makes it so devastating. So we have air pollution and we have diabetes, but how exactly are the two related? Well, some previous work has shown a correlation between health concerns, including cardiovascular diseases and also asthma and air pollution. However, the field of diabetes and air pollution is something that's really been emerging in the past 10 years. Some previous studies done on both humans and mice have shown there may be a correlation there. However, that causation is yet to be pronounced or found, and that's what I went after. So I asked, is there a genetic relation between diabetes type 2 and fine particulate matter? And if so, does the type of PM2.5 play a role in this? So I hypothesized that an acute exposure to PM2.5 over a 22-day period will lead to the induction of pulmonary, metabolic, and related genetic adverse health effects, including but not limited to the development of pre-diabetic or diabetic conditions. So there were three main aims in my study. The first was a pulmonary inflammation aim, which really was to show that the air pollution I was exposing my subjects to was having an effect on their bodily systems. The second was to assess the overt diabetes in the mice to see if they did develop any pre-diabetic or diabetic conditions. And finally, the third was the genetic underpinnings aim of my study to see if any genes were turned on expression as a result of the exposure to air pollution. So aim one. I was assisted by a scientist as I myself could not handle the mice as I was a minor at the time. And so we injected our mice through oropharyngeal aspirations. That was our method of exposing them to pollution. And so I separated the mice into three groups, an urban group, a rural group, and a control group. And as you can see, the urban received pollutions from Manhattan and the Bronx, the rural from Goshen, Tuxedo, and Wallkill, and the control was exposed to sterilized water. So this caused that differentiation between setting up two different groups, two treatment groups that I can compare between. And so after my 22-day period was completed, the trained scientists also took some bowel fluid from the lungs, as well as tissue samples from the aorta and liver. And here's where I come in for aim one. After the experiment was completed, I conducted all the differential and cell counting to see if there was any inflammation by measuring the neutrophil and PMN counts. Also, I ran some protein leakage and LDH assays to assess overall holistic health of these cells by measuring for cellular damage and protein leakage. Now, the second aim, for overt diabetes. Again, I need the assistance of the trained scientists to handle the mice. So we ran weekly blood glucose measurements to see if there were any trends developing over the course of my study. And finally, right before the completion of my study, we ran an interperitoneal glucose tolerance test, which occurred by injecting the mice with a fixed dosage of glucose and measuring their blood glucose levels at fixed intervals after the fact to see how well their bodies were able to regulate insulin glucose levels by releasing insulin to get back to a homeostasis level. Also part of aim 2, I ran Western blot testing, where I used some liver tissue that I was taking from the mice, and I probed against AKT antibodies. And AKT is a substance that controls survival in cell apoptosis, and it is released by insulin and activated by insulin. So we expected to find higher levels of AKT in the healthier mice that would have normal levels of insulin. And finally, the gene expression array. I ran something called an array, and the beauty of an array is that I'm able to test 84 genes at once. Instead of going gene by gene by gene, I was able to test this whole group that are known to be related to diabetes to see if any of these genes turned on expression as a result of the exposure. So on to the results. As you can see, I'd like to direct your attention to the neutrophil column. Let me get my right on. There's about 0.4% shown inflammation in the control group, which is an extremely low number, and shows that these mice were in fact healthy and did not have any impact by the control and sterilized water that they received. But if you look down at the urban, they were about 64%, and the rural about 20.4%. And both these numbers are extremely elevated, especially the urban, showing that both these groups of mice were largely impacted and affected by the exposure to air pollution. This is just another view to give you a different visual, and all these differences were shown to be statistically significant. So for the soluble protein measures, we were not able to find a difference across the three groups. But if you look over at LDH, both the two treated groups were shown to have much higher levels than the control group, showing that, again, the overall health of these mice was definitely decreased by the exposure to air pollution. So So for the interperitoneal glucose tolerance test, again, that's when we injected them with a fixed dosage of glucose and measured their blood glucose levels after the fact. You could see that the trends really show that these mice that received the urban pollution did have some pre-diabetic conditions going on. If you look at the 20 to 30 minute standpoints, you can see that both the control and rural groups had begun to decrease in their blood glucose levels, meaning that their body had correctly produced enough insulin. However, the urban group was still rising in blood glucose levels, showing that their bodies either A, needed more time, or B, could not proficiently produce the insulin that they needed to get back to that homeostasis level. So for the Western blotting, again, I measured with AKT, which is activated by insulin, and we found exactly what we thought we would, that the control groups had a much higher amount of this protein antibody available compared with both the two treatment groups, who had much lower levels, indicating that, once again, the insulin could not be either proficiently used or released by the pancreas or by the cells. And finally, the novel part of my study, the gene expression array. So once again, I tested 84 genes in expression and normalized them by comparing them to the control group. And I found that 40 genes in total, 18 in the rural, with 3 in the urban, and 19 in both groups, were shown to be expressed after the exposure to air pollution in the 22-day study. Now, these 40 genes, and my study is the first to test for any genetic relation to air pollution and using an array. But when I was looking at this data, I thought, why are there more in the rural as opposed to the urban? Because when most of us think of air pollution, we think of New York City and the Bronx as being the worst, typically more so than areas like Goshen and Wallkill and Tuxedo. So there are two main explanations for this. The first is something that I'm very interested in, and that's the composition of the pollutions. When you look at the areas like Goshen, Wallkill, and Tuxedo, those are more farmlands, and possible usage of pesticides in the farming could impact the air pollution and cause, maybe there's an element or compound in that pollution exactly that impacts the mice negatively and causes those 18 genes to turn on expression. And possibly all those 18 genes are on the same pathway or cascade, causing one to lead to the expression of the other, and so on. And of course, the second explanation is that there were experimental errors during the RNA work leading to this mishap. So once again, the association between PM2.5 exposure and adverse pulmonary metabolic health effects was demonstrated by my study. And my study was the first of its kind to test the expressions of multiple genes that are known to be related to insulin resistance after acute ambient particulate pollution exposure. So now what can we do? Well, walking in here, I'm sure that many of you did not even know of any kind of relationship between air pollution and diabetes, as the case was with myself when I began this project 3 years ago. And you're not alone. Trust me, throughout the world, and especially in the United States, this is an area that has been neglected in research, and only in the past 10 years has it been studied. And only a handful of researchers across the world are working on this. So we really have to get the word out there about this condition and see if we can start some new projects and continue on with that. And I mentioned the composition study, and what I'd like to do is map out what exactly is in both the rural and urban pollutions and cross-compare between the two and see what is in rural that is not in urban, and maybe run an exposure study on just those elements or compounds to see exactly and pinpoint what it is that is causing this negative relationship between air pollution and diabetes. And also, I'd like to do an extended duration study. My study, again, was 22 days. However, if we run the same thing for 3 months or possibly 3 years, will we get the same results? Because in the real world, we're not living in a place like New York City or overseas in China for 2 days at a time. We're living there for years and lifetimes and generations. So really, this could be just the beginning and the tip of the iceberg. And we have yet to uncover what's really there. So again, I'd like to thank my mentor, Dr. Lung Chi Chen at NYU, and his team of graduate assistants, as well as Dr. Bhagavagaya Narayanan and Narayanan, as well as Dr. Nirmal Roy. It's a mouthful.
Fast. Go ahead, Dylan.
And finally, New York University School of Medicine and the Department of Environmental Health for allowing me to utilize their resources and to conduct my experiment at their laboratories, as well as my mentor, Dr. Christine Rogers, my science research classmates, one of them over there, Jazz included, and my parents, Ron and Thomas Gambardella, for all their support. Thank you very much. I'd love to take any questions or comments if anybody has any. Yes, thank you.
Were the pollutants that you were giving to the mice aerosolized, or were they liquid? I was unclear.
Sure. So the question was, the pollutions I was giving to the mice, were they in liquid form or were they more of an airborne? That's a great question. The way I conducted my study, the pollution was suspended in liquid form. So what would happen is the mice would be temporarily knocked out and no harm to them at all, and they would be injected with a small droplet of liquid that would go right down their oropharynx and part of their trachea, and this way it would go right into their lungs and provide direct exposure. This way it stimulates years and years of exposure to pollution. As I was only there for 2 months, I could not conduct an inhalation study because that takes more time to really fully penetrate and see the effects of such an exposure study.
Did did the control group go through the same procedure just with saline or?
Yes, the control group went through exactly the same procedure, and they were exposed to sterilized water. So they went through everything, all the same testing, all the blood glucose level testing for purposes of normalization. Thank you. Anyone else?
Veterinarian.
But-
By the way.
Awesome.
Make two quick comments. One is, you know, you can look at some of the areas in the world where diabetes is growing most rapidly, like Mexico City, and China, and they have large amounts of pollution.
Right.
But the other comment I'd make, when you look at rural areas, if you've ever hauled hay or mowed pastures in the summer or plowed, you know the dust that comes off of that.
Definitely.
And so those kind of things really make a city go to, you know,
Definitely, definitely.
They can really make a city look clean.
Right.
So.
And again, this is just the beginning of it. As I mentioned, these two areas are, I mean, when you think about New York City in the grand scheme of things, it's not so bad. I mean, we know it's not the healthiest of cities and places to live, but when you go abroad, you mentioned Mexico, and you go across the seas in Saudi Arabia and China, and these places are completely devastated by air pollution. A lot of it due to coal mining and whatnot.
Mhm.
But this study has such greater, far-reaching results and indications for the future and future research.
What about places where they have regular fires, you know, like prairie fires or forest fires and things like that?
Right, so the question was, how about places that have fires and maybe dry lands like in California and the West? And that's a great question. I myself have not looked into that correlation, but I know that there was a study done in 2010 up at Harvard in Boston that mapped out the highest areas of air pollution and compared them to the highest areas of diabetes prevalence. And we found that the two areas did overlap. This was really one of the articles that sparked my interest in this topic. And it's actually in my literature review, if I can go back to it. But it really was interesting to see that, especially in the Southeast and the Ohio River Valley areas, those were the prominent places of diabetes and also the highest levels of PM 2.5. So it'd be great to look at and see what the effect of the burning and fires and whatnot, like you mentioned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So what's next? You graduate and
Took
then
my
what?
question.
What's next? That's a great question. Well, I love science, and this has been a great experience for me. I would love to continue it in undergraduate research. However, I'm not sure if I want to make a career out of this per se, but the whole aspect of environmental science and even the relationship between the economics and environmental science has really piqued my interest, and it's something I want to pursue further from maybe a policy standpoint and management or actual hands-on research. I definitely want to continue with it, and if not me, hopefully pique someone else's interest so they continue this. Because like I mentioned, there's only a handful of people working on this, and I'd love for anybody else to join in and continue my project. I'd be more than happy to hand over my data and say, go get it, because that's really what we need.
And I'm glad you mentioned the environmental piece. We had a meeting the other day, maybe yesterday, with members from the Beacon Institute that lead the Riverkeeper project on the Hudson, as well as individuals from Clarkson University, a big engineering program, and Cooper Union, a big engineering program, and started to brainstorm with some of our high school staff about an environmental engineering or environmental science program or series of opportunities for our kids to explore exactly what Dylan is talking about, what his study indicated.
Definitely, that's great.
So there'll be hopefully opportunities for kids to go an inch wide and a mile deep on the environmental end as well.
Very nice.
On behalf of the board, we would like to say congratulations. Thank you so much for all of your hard work and all of your endeavors in the area of science. And Dr. Rogers, thank you as well. And to your parents, congratulations to you. I know how proud you must be of your son. And again, thank you for presenting this to us.
Thank you so much again for having me. Really
And for
appreciate
me,
it.
I've known Dylan since he's been very young,
Yes, I know.
and besides his parents, I am also a very big fan of Dylan.
Well, congratulations.
And his
to you,
sister.
too.
Thank you.
And I didn't expect any less than excellence from you, so
Thank you so much.
congratulations.
Yes,
And
thank
Ronnie
you.
and Tom, you know how I feel about him. so. Wonderful.
Thank you again so much. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you. Okay, next we're on to committee reports. Anybody?
Facilities met last week. The meeting was basically held for the engineering, the architect organization, as well as Enrique, to go over the timelines of what we're going to be doing with the capital block project. We're already into the technology phase, but we'll have, I think, we're gonna map out for the public as well as when the different, we're gonna put together a timeline for everybody. So basically just wanted to go over when these certain projects are gonna start between this summer and summer of 2015. So I think maybe the next meeting we'll have that timeline for everybody to have, or be up on the website.
I'm sure people would appreciate that. Thank you.
We got an email today from Matthew, they're gonna be putting smart boards in the elementary school
Right.
starting next week, so we're moving ahead on that.
And also the septic fields out of Furnace Woods and Blue Mountain, it's been delayed because of the hard winter that
It's not surprising.
You and Mike.
the septic project out at Blue Mountain and Furnace Woods, they were gonna do the research and, do the testing, but that's been delayed due to the hard winter that we had, so that won't start until the middle to late spring.
Actually, they'll do the testing this spring, and then we'll do the project next summer. Not this
Correct.
summer, but the next summer.
But yeah, it's delayed.
So we just wanted to make sure everybody knew when stuff was gonna start and end, et cetera, so.
Did they get the timeline for us?
He was gonna.
Not yet.
Not yet, right?
We're working
Okay.
on it. That's it.
Thank you.
I went to the BOCES Component Districts Facilities Advisory Committee on Monday, and they did a review of the Putnam Northwest BOCES Facility Semi-Annual Plan. They did a nice job last year of creating a spreadsheet that has all of the buildings with all the facilities on it and what condition they're in. And so they updated that and tell us what's in excellent shape, poor shape, so that we won't get into the condition where we have, they're hoping to get everything onto their operations and maintenance budget so that they can take care of it, and not have to do a bond. Then they updated their capital project. They reviewed what they did last year. They did roofs on 2 buildings, HVAC, and several other things. One of the most important takeaways was that they had a problem with the roofing contractor. They removed him from the job, but they got back all of the money. Project manager documented everything so well that they got the money back, and it didn't cost us anything extra. But they got the work done. They got it warranted by Firestone, and there's no problem with it. The other thing is, they finally we approved 2 therapy pools. It took from last June until January 29th to get an approval from the Westchester County Department of Health. It's an innovative design, and they had a real problem with approving something that was innovative. But they're they'll be put into place this spring and summer, hopefully, and ready for use by next fall. The thing that's exciting about it is that they have movable floors, so they can move the kids into them. Then they have treadmills on the bottom so the kids can exercise while they're in the pool. They have cameras underneath so that they can take pictures and show the kids what they're learning. And there's a possibility they talked about of doing some shared services with the district. These are treadmill pools that are very similar to what are used in professional athletic franchises like the Giants. They have them at Meadowland Station, and so there's a possibility we'll do some shared services with athletic departments for rehabilitation for kids. They're bidding for the second phase of the project March 19th and 20th. There's some concern about some snap corrections in prices, and there's some escalation going up. But so far, they're on budget and relatively on time to get the project finished. And then there's a 3rd phase next year. And that was it.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? Okay, then we're moving right along to the superintendent's report.
Okay, I have just a couple follow-ups and updates. 'Tis the season for spring athletics, although it feels like mid-January. I was reminded by our athletic director that on Monday, a year ago on Monday, so on March 10th, 2013, all of our kids were practicing on all of our outside fields. And that certainly isn't happening now. So we are going to have to address, most likely when we have our major defrost and thaw, of the condition of our main field. We were blessed, kind of, with a really dry summer, which created different problems. We had a really nice fall season. It was dry, it was long, it was warm. I think we're going to have some discussions over the condition of the field in the spring. I know the athletic directors are already talking about trying to find opportunities for weekend games and round robins on Saturdays and Sundays at local universities that have turf fields, or other high schools that have turf fields, because they are out practicing. They were able to plow or shovel, and they can practice outside to a different extent than we can. So just something that we're going to have to keep in mind. The follow-up to our prescription drug forum from a couple weeks ago, I've had some subsequent meetings with Linda Puglisi. She has indicated that the county is interested in having a discussion with the school district on school resource officers. So I'm going to meet with representatives from the county next Monday to talk about what that might look like. Most importantly, to talk about what the funding streams would be. I have worked in districts that had school resource officers, and I can tell you that the most effective officers are ones who are part of the school community, who are engaged with students, that are not only supporting the administration when you need some law enforcement, but more often than not are doing proactive programs and having proactive conversations and relationships with kids. So sometimes it's not just about having an SRO, it's about who the SRO is.
Absolutely.
So we will certainly keep you in the loop with how we progress there, and of course no decisions will be made until we have more information and more discussions. The video, the town of Cortland brought some staff to film the forum. That is up on the town's website. We are going to create a link on our website and Facebook and Twitter to that video, so those that couldn't attend, or those that did and want to go through and listen or pull out some salient points, we'll get that up very quickly. And in terms of follow-up, the PTA is very interested in addressing and communicating this issue among parents. And so at our next PTA council meeting in April, we're going to bring in members from the Student Assistance Program, which Ellen Morehouse, who's the president of, she facilitated the meeting. She and some of her staff are going to meet with the PTA council to talk about what parents could do or should do, or what some follow-up initiatives could be led and spearheaded by the PTA. Sometimes it's not just the message, but it's who is supporting the message, and I think if we can create more opportunities for parents to communicate to parents, that would be nothing but positive. So hopefully some really good follow-up will come from that. Kim Duncan is one of our elementary music teachers. She had a great opportunity to conduct the all-county band. Or choral group. We had all county this Saturday at SUNY Purchase, and she was chosen from scores of her colleagues in the region to conduct the chorus. We're getting a video, and we're going to link the video to our website. It's a great honor for her. It's a great honor for our students that auditioned and selected. So that's just a great honor for our staff and our kids to be able to perform. And speaking of performances, we have Hen Hud Live, which is on Saturday, March 22nd. And I make the segue about performances because I attended last year to meet people and understand what Hen Hud Live was about. And I had a conversation with Maggie Pinkway after Hen Hud Live, and she said, "Hey, what'd you think?" So on and so forth. I said, "It was great." I said, "You know what would be even better is if you had some live music." And she remembered that I said that. So 3 months ago, she said, "Hey,
We know
remember
it's
last
coming.
year? Yeah,
You're
remember
gonna
you
play?
said, yeah, remember you said we should have live music?" I said, "No," but she goes, "So you're going to play, right?" So we put together a little jazz group of educators from our district. We have a piano player from Ossining and the lead guitar player from Yorktown BOCES, and we're going to play for an hour and a half. So
Very cool.
if you don't have tickets yet, you now have a good reason to be there. So it's a great event, and hopefully we'll spice it up a little bit. And that's that.
Thank you. I'm very happy to hear that there's going to be a continuation of the drug forum, because I know a lot of people in the community were so impressed with what they came and they heard, and they would like that to continue. So I'm very happy that we're going to be continuing that, and congratulations to Ms. Duncan. It's wonderful, wonderful.
Yep, outstanding. Good honor.
Yes,
Great honor.
absolutely, for our district.
And the follow-up article by Annie Chesney, our PR person on the community forum, was very well written.
Mhm.
And it was quick and got it up there, and it hit the
Yep.
salient points very well, so
Yep.
that was good to see.
Well, in continuation with our budget presentation, we now have Dr. Gottlieb talking to us about staffing for next year.
So you'll help me with the remote? Okay, thanks. This is a pleasure this year. It's the 7th time I'm doing this presentation, and it's the first time I'm not telling you about cuts and layoffs and other sad things. So, hallelujah is right. Take a deep breath. We're in a good place. Thanks. Could
Our
you?
young teachers are fine. Here we go.
Oh, it just scrolls. That's interesting. Okay, so I'm just going to show you enrollment in our schools. You know that our elementary enrollment has been declining, and Pollyanna in me keeps thinking that as soon as our real estate market and home prices pick up, we'll see changes. And it's starting all over the county as people are selling homes and flipping them to families with young children. So that's what that's going to happen. But meanwhile, you can see fewer sections in our elementary schools. What we are proposing to do at this point, because we're in a kind of neutral budget, we have cut our elementary in a pretty devastating way over the past several years. Everyone is screaming for math support, and here's an opportunity to get it back. So,
Hallelujah.
yeah. So that's where we are with our staffing. And of course, if those classes split, the 2 fifth grades, one at BV and one at Furnace Woods, and the first grade at Furnace Woods, they're all awfully close. It'll be a different conversation, but we'll see.
Last summer, we had a group of parents come in. I mean, if we're
Thanks
not-
for asking that, Carson.
if we're not
That,
talk- If we're not talking about splitting now, we're gonna need to seriously think about it.
well, what we
That
need,
number-
what I would say, we started a consistent look at this last year. If you look at the cap numbers through 3rd grade, those are nice small classes. If you look at the cap in 4th and 5th grade at 26, okay, 26 you can do. We had this magical hen hood way of splitting, as we tried to explain last year, that kind of makes sense because we don't split, with the first child. But what we decided last year, although in the old way, we would have had to have the 55th child, that's 27 kids in a class, to split. What we decided last year was to stay with the cap, not in K through 3. In K through 3, we're using this magical hen hood calculation, which is +1 and then the next child.
Which is in the contract.
It's, yeah. But for 4th and 5th grade, we decided that, it's just too big. So right now, we're at the 26, 52 obviously.
A lot of kids.
Is 2 times 50, 26. So we're right there. And we don't get new enrollees in 5th grade the way we do in kindergarten and 1st grade, because families tend not to move as frequently. So it could stay there, it could go down, it could go up. We watch it all summer. And the principals will be watching like hawks, because of course they want to split. So that's where we are in elementary. Could you? Middle school, kind of holding its own. Some classes are bigger than others. It won't be until 2 years from now that we'll start seeing the smaller elementary classes enter the middle school. So we're holding at about 200 students in each grade level, which is where we've been for a long time. High school, same, up and down, but holding at about 200 in a grade level. So you can see the enrollment's consistent. Okay, so the staffing considerations, as we look at this declining enrollment in the elementary school, and we've had retirements, our considerations to maintain our current staffing level, which gives us an opportunity to bring back the support in the elementary school if, if the class sizes stay where they are. Carson, question?
Yep, are we thinking of bringing back, which I hope we are, some of the ones we let go last year, some of the good ones?
Actually, we,
Because with the retirements and what we talked
yeah,
about,
we have,
there's a couple.
we have 2 teachers who are on our reduction in force list, or our bring back list, and one was on a maternity leave last year, and the other has a teaching job in Rye. So, in my head, I'm hoping we can bring Marissa back. Okay? She's and that she'll be
She's
ready to
excellent,
come
yeah.
back. She's, we have
Wonderful
wonderful teachers
teacher.
all the way through, but
Well, I can say that
The-
also because I taught with her, so.
right,
I
but,
can
the
say
whole
she's
concept of being laid off in your 7th year in the district is just kind of sad. You should be safe by then. But in my 7 years here, I've hired 1 elementary teacher because of the reductions, and only 1, and she's the one now working in Rye. She was laid off. So it's unfortunate.
And if I could just jump in for a minute, the opportunity this creates with going out and recruiting and hiring is a really timely and dynamic opportunity. Allison and I talked the other day about a new teacher orientation that can really bring in a cohort of teachers and create almost create like a freshman class sort of feel.
Mhm.
So I know we hired some folks last year and we did a great job, but that was a handful of teachers.
Well, it was, mostly they were people who went from part-time to full-time, so
Yeah.
they'd been with us for a year. And there was Tom Confrey, who was, tenured in another district and came in his,
Mhm.
there was virtually no hiring last year. But this is a different situation this year. Go back, please. Don't scroll down yet. Thanks. Whenever possible, we're going to try and hire duly certified teachers, for example, math and physics, or ELA and social studies, secondary, elementary and reading, whenever possible, more than 1 certification, because these people come with a bigger skill set, and also easier to schedule, because they're more, it's
Absolutely.
more flexible. So that's what we're working on. And Enrique wanted to show you that our increase in teacher salary is minimal going from this year to next. It's 0.19%. So that's kind of nice. Even maintaining the staff we have, bringing back different positions, we're still, in a good neutral place, budget-wise.
Good.
Okay. This is just, I've always included the special ed staffing, so I included it again, although I know you had a special ed presentation a couple of weeks ago. But this is where we are. You can see we're looking to bring on another ABC class. They're bursting at the seams in Frank G. Lindsay. Okay, thank you. And finally, I added, this is just a rollover from last year. There's no increase at all, but it's the money that's put in for various professional development. The mentoring, it's been that number consistently for quite a while. My first year here, we had a big freshman class, and then obviously we were laying off more than hiring, but we may need this money next year, and that's just a great thing. So that's where we are. Easy this time.
Very easy.
In past years, I felt like crying up here. It was awful, and huge audiences of people who were losing their jobs, and the young teachers with all their enthusiasm. So sad. So we're not there now, and this is just a great night. Thanks.
I just have a very quick question. Are we considering doing any training for the other domains, that perhaps some of the teachers didn't get trained in?
Oh,
over the
absolutely.
summer?
We've all, over the summer, yes and no, we don't get everyone, and we need to get
What
everyone.
about by the end of the
But
year?
What's the domain?
In the math modules,
The different modules.
the math modules specifically, Alexandra Greenberg, who did a
And the reading
wonderful
domains.
training with our teachers, our elementary teachers, is coming back in June to do, to, you know, kick off the year the second time through
Right.
for next year. And the math committee asked me today, could they get her for twice next year? I said, absolutely. So we're booking her now. She's getting very popular because there are very, very, very few people skilled in these brand-new
Right.
math modules, skilled to the extent that they can provide professional development for teachers. And
What
she's
about-
one.
I'm sorry, but that would be a wonderful idea, even if we could get, you know, some training by the end of the year for the teachers, so they could work together maybe over the summer, you know, or even work by themselves to kind of prepare.
Actually,
For next
Joe and
year.
I have been talking about a big kickoff with our elementary committees, looking at where we
Absolutely.
are, what we've done, where we need to go, what kind of support they need, and then some sort of a really solid retreat for this group in the summer
Absolutely.
to keep it going.
I think of all of the pain that school districts, teachers, and parents and kids have endured with the Common Core. What it has really highlighted and put on the forefront is for a specific focus. I'll call it research and development, or what we would call in the real world, which is staff development. And I would love to get our district and our staff to a place where it's nice to recharge the batteries over the summer, but that is a great time to bring teams of people together to
Absolutely.
do staff development. And that is part of creating a culture. And as Alice said, we're going to try to create that this year. We have groups of staff working on really important work, and we keep talking about time. Well, next Wednesday, we're going to put on the table the opportunity to do some of this work over the summer and to train folks over the summer. So when the 1st of September rolls around, we are ready to go, as opposed to we're here to learn, and then we'll probably be ready to teach in October. So it's a culture shift, but a conversation that we're having.
No, but it's very beneficial because I think there's been, you know, a little less stress in our district because we're providing training for our teachers, we're providing training for our parents, you know, which brings me to the point that, you know, March 24th is BV Math Night.
And we're
And
already planning.
We've had these, you know, periodically throughout the district at various schools. So we're not just training teachers, but we're training parents. So there's a greater comfort level that, you know, I think our parents and our teachers are starting to have with the Common Core. So I thank you and Mr. Hochreiter for
It's pretty great. We're in the
certainly
best place
providing
we've been
that.
in math in a long time.
Absolutely.
The March 24th Parent Night at BV is hosted at BV, but it's for parents from the full district.
All over the district.
Yes, and we break down into grade-specific workshops. And the teachers who prepare these workshops look ahead, so they help parents to know what's coming in the next few weeks in math.
Well, I
And we
think it's
already,
so
we've
good.
we've got a plan for next fall. One of the schools will be presenting the second week of school for the first workshop, September 10th or 11th. And then we're talking perhaps November and February to push it back. You know, this year in September, it was so brand new. There was no way we could create a workshop that would be meaningful. But we're in such a better place. And our 3 elementary principals who go to county-wide principal meetings talk constantly about how smart it was for us to jump into these modules, because the people who are trying to balance a program in the modules, they're so confused and so, it's chaos. So we're in a pretty good place in math, and I'm looking at our high school math teacher. I'm hoping our kids will be in a better place in math when they get to your colleagues in our district. So
Very good.
anyway,
Does
feel good
anybody
about
have
it.
any other questions?
Yeah, I have just a comment question for the community. This is our K-12 budget presentation. It's the most important, I mean, it's the bulk of our budget. So the reason we present it like this, just to clarify, is that the main bulk of the K-12 budget is the staffing. It's 80%, I believe. So that's why we have this piece. And in the past, it's been very important and contentious because we've had cuts, we unfortunately have to deal with. So it's great that we don't. But I do think in presentations which I believe will be coming for the future, we need to be very transparent on this large bulk of our, $71+ million budget, on where this money is, and allocating, line by line where it is, which we will have in our budget book, but it really should be I think, part of this presentation. So I believe we'll have that in the future when we get our budget books. But the reason just to make it clear, we present it like this because these are the changes essentially that we see from this large book. But it's a lot of money. It's what
Well,
percentage
yeah, and
of the
Enrique
kids-
presents that in the overall budget when he gives the.
Right, but this is our K-12, and we need parents to see it now. We need our community to see it now as taxpayers,
That-
I think. So what percentage is it, Enrique, of our budget? It's K-12?
K-12 is about 70% of our
So
budget.
this is
around
So I think
70%.
one pie graph might do it.
Well, no, I think it's
No?
more than a pie graph, but I think, yeah, that would certainly help. I think this is, a lot of money, and we need a really thorough presentation, which I know we'll have, but this is just one, I just want to make it clear to everyone, this is just the one piece of it. So, this will be coming in the future.
Had a discussion about that the other night with the board chair from, I believe it was North Salem, Debbie D'Agostino, and she says that they post their budget at the start of budget season, the line by line, on the website for everybody to see, and then they talk about it every week. They meet every week for 6 weeks. One week they meet on regular board items, and the next week they meet on the board budget. So they flip, divide it out similar to how we do, but they have the line by line budget posted the whole time, so that anybody can look at it and talk
Yeah,
about
so
it.
this is $50 million we're talking about. It's
Yes.
a lot,
Yep, so we can,
Yeah.
Enrique and I and Alice can get that.
Actually, she also made
Whatever,
a point,
whatever
they
you want.
do it, they have what they're gonna spend this year, they have what they spent last year and what they spent the year before. So it's an interesting way of going at it, it's different than we go back.
We have done, we've done both. We've done that, we have done it, yeah.
We've gotten away from it in the last couple of years. One question, what's our guidance staffing, and is that staying the same? Are we assuming that all other staffing is rolling over the same?
Absolutely. This is not the time to cut, this is the time to start building.
And our ESL
Building
program
back.
is running the same?
Yes, it'll have the same amount of staff, but our numbers of ESL students continues to decline.
And where are our ESLs, we used to be housed at Furnace Woods, where is it now?
They're in their home schools.
So we have an ESL,
We have 52 children right now. We were at 90 when I arrived. And the children are being serviced in their neighborhood schools. We felt it was very important what we've done by having these kids in, all at Furnace Woods. The families didn't have the support of their neighborhood.
yes,
It was tough on those families. So the kids are home.
so we're sharing 2 elementary
We have
teachers?
2 elementary, well, 1 teacher in our high school. For whatever reason, our high school numbers are the largest, and that's also the highest stakes. Those kids need to graduate from high school. So, when you come as a newcomer in 10th grade, it's pretty amazing to pass Regents 2 years later. So anyway, we have a full-time ESL teacher in the high school, and we have 2 ESL teachers who, one is at Furnace Woods and the middle school, and the other is at Frank G. and BV, half-days.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Thank you, Dr. Gottlieb.
Pleasure.
Now that brings us to audience comments. Anybody? No? Okay. Well, then that brings us to board comments, or if anybody has any new business. I'm going to say that, yes. Okay, before we adjourn then, I would like to say that our next meeting is going to be on March 26th at the Hendrick Hudson Free Library. And I'd like to remind everybody that the art show is going on and will continue through then. There will be a board meet and greet at Dunkin' Donuts this Saturday from 8:30 to 10 in the morning. If you'd like to chat with Carol Abraham, Carson Jacobs, or Charles Thompson. We have, again, Hen Hud Live on March 22nd. And we have BV Math Night for those of you that would like a little bit more instruction on math. That will be March 24th, again, at BV.
Is the BV Science Fair tomorrow?
BV Science Fair is
In the
tomorrow,
morning
all day.
from
Yes.
8:30 to 10:30, and
And then in the evening.
Mm-hmm.
6:30 at night.
6:30.
6:30 in the evening.
So before we finish new business, I wanna congratulate you on the first time you've run a meeting, and it's been
Oh,
very
my
smooth.
goodness,
Thank you.
thank you
For
so
getting us out
much.
early.
That's because I moved right along.
You kept it going quick tonight.
I
won't have
did,
to say anything.
I did.
And if you were thinking about saying something, she looked at you.
That's right, it's that teacher
I
look.
got blues underneath the table.
Yes, okay. So my last statement, can I please have a motion to end the meeting? So moved. Second, everybody, yes. Thank you so much.